remorseful for the crimes that he's committed, especially while incarcerated. And I can tell you, he won't be back. He wants a new start. He wants his family. He wants his kids. You know, I mean, he's missed his children and his grandchildren growing up, let alone my father. We haven't buried my father yet. So when he gets home, we'll do that also. So.
What else is his plan if he's paroled?
I believe he's possibly leaving the state. He's had a few job offers. I'm not really positive on that. He's had an outpouring of support from people with offers of jobs and cars and houses. And I think everything's positive, and he'll go far.
Thank you for your
You're
time.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
Hey everybody, it's Nick Monticelli live here outside of the correctional facility and the Rick Wershe parole hearing, which just ended right now. There are lots of people coming outside, but I can give you the gist of what's going on. The parole board talked to Wershe, his attorney, and one other person who wanted to talk. The whole thing lasted about 5 hours, going from 9 o'clock in the morning until now, so it's just about 1 o'clock in the afternoon here. What was interesting is that at the very end, the parole board gave Wershe an opportunity to make one final statement, and he was kind of short and brief in it, but he did say that I know I messed up, I know I made some bad and stupid decisions, but you will not see me back here. And then what happened after that, which to me was the key point, is that the parole board, Mr. Egan, said that he did see some positive signs in the 30 years or so that Wershe has been here. Of course, they did talk about the fact that there were also some issues involving a Florida case. So now we just have to wait and see what's going to happen. So we're going to join over here and listen to what everyone else has to say.
I regret not having the opportunity.
Do you feel those things outweigh the mistakes he made while in prison and before?
I do. Again, you got to take his youth into consideration, which I think the parole board will. But yes, I do.
Just your name for the camera.
Yes, Herman.
Good opportunity to speak, but if they had, what would you have added, especially the way the hearing was going?
Well, I think that during the course of the questioning, there were a lot of innuendos made that didn't hold water. And if we'd have had an opportunity to get up there and address some of those things, because the highlight was all on everything negative that Rick had done. And they didn't highlight the positive. They mentioned it quickly, but then it was gone away. And all the stuff that was mentioned with regards to Florida and all of that, you got to consider the source. This guy in here assumed that because it was in an affidavit in support of a warrant, that it's all true. I'm sorry, that's not the way the world works. Everybody wants to accentuate certain things to make their writings better. And the bottom line was, most of that in there that this guy was asking questions about, it's false. And yet, he just assumed it was all true. Well, did you do the investigation? Did you speak with the investigator down in Florida? No. Well, I have. And as soon as I brought up certain things, he goes, well, you know, I really don't want to talk about it. Well, that says an awful lot. And that should have been brought out there today, and it wasn't.
How do you weigh his cooperation in putting people away versus the mistakes and crimes he committed?
I don't know of anybody that I've dealt with over the years, and I've been in now associated with the FBI for, I'm going on 46 years. I've never seen anybody cooperate like Richard Wershe. I mean, he literally had the safety of undercover agents in the palm of his hand. And he always did the right thing, just like he testified. I mean, when he testified about it, he was truthful and honest, and he's always been that way. I've never known him to tell me a lie, and I've been talking to him once, twice a week for 29 years. So.
Do the people of Detroit have anything to fear if Rick Wershe's released?
Absolutely not. I don't think so, anyway. I would bet my life on it that he will be an asset to the community, and I think he has an awful lot to offer to the youth of America to say, look what happened to me, and you don't want that to happen. So do the right thing, just like he has done with regards to his cooperation.
In 2003, you were at the parole hearing. Now you're here today.
Ralph, can we talk with you briefly?
Sure.
It seemed like there was an effort to show that maybe Rick over the years has been telling half-truths or minimizing his role. Can you talk a little bit about how that happens or why that happens?
Well, what you've got was the assistant state attorney general was acting like a prosecutor up there as opposed to just an interrogator. And I thought that he was a bit out of line when he put so much emphasis on this allegation of cocaine dealing down in Florida when he knew that that was not charged and when he knew that that was not in the plea agreement. And the reason he do it is because I sent him the plea agreement, and the article from that agreement that I read into the record stated specifically what Rick was offering his plea to, and there was nothing in there about cocaine. As a matter of fact, cocaine dealing was never charged in the underlying indictment. That's just what the police gave to the judge to get a warrant. And you throw cocaine in there and it jumps off the charts, and of course everybody's going to sign it.
Rick got heated at that moment. Do you think it's a problem for him?
Well, I didn't really see him as getting heated. I saw him as getting frustrated because he was answering the same question over and over and over again, coming from a different angle because the attorney was trying to get an answer that wasn't there.
Are you optimistic after all this?
Cautiously, yeah. I thought that it was interesting that Michael Egan reopened and began to question Rick about the cooperation that he gave to the federal government while he was in federal prison. That's what the two FBI agents would have spoke to, and I think Egan knew that. He didn't want to go outside of the parameters of their normal protocol, and when they didn't check the box, yes, he wasn't going to allow them to be called, but he knew what they were going to testify to.
Some might say, well, what do they have to lose if he's going to be released to Florida and spend more time in prison? They're really not taking a big risk here.
Well, no, except for from Rick's standpoint. Let's say they do take him down to Florida. He's got an end date. He knows when he's going to get out. Here, there was no termination point.
How much more time would he have to spend?
About 22 months. And I'm not sure that they even want him. I've been talking with attorneys down there that have ins to the Florida Attorney General, and they're trying to find out whether or not they even want to exercise their detainer. And they should get notification from Michigan here on the decision by the parole board, and then it'll be up to Florida to determine whether or not they want to come up and get him and take him down here. If they say no, then that's the end of it.
What do you think of Egan's final comments about seeing some positives coming out of this?
I think that's very encouraging. I think he didn't have to say that. All right, so I'm cautiously optimistic.
Excellent. Thank you, Ralph.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I get this right.
Now we're going to go down here and talk to White Boy Rick's mother.
Crazy and very, I don't know. I'm just praying that he gets out.
Was it hard to watch as a mother?
Yes, it was very. I'm not feeling that well, and I just want to make sure he gets home and we can spend some time together.
What was your reaction again to the hearing? How did you think it went?
It just was very confusing to me. I don't know what to say. I pray he gets out soon. That's all I can do.
Do you think he handled himself the best he could?
Yes, I do.
Do you think he was honest today?
Yes.
And if you could talk to the parole board, what would you tell him?
He deserves to be out. I've been to visit him many times and had compliments from guards on how good he is. And he needs to get out.
They asked how he would do on the outside, and he said, "You'll never see me again. I'll never commit another crime." What are your thoughts as his mom?
he will be good. I know he will.
Is it tough for you to know that even if he wins this battle, he still has 2 years left in Florida, potentially?
No, it's not, because I've talked to people down there, and they said they wouldn't keep him that long. I'm sorry?
What stood out the most?
As a mom.
That they had him tell what he felt and how things went for him. And I think he did a good job. I really do.
At the end of the hearing, Mr. Egan talked almost as if they're going to release him. He said, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do this. He said, now if we vote to let you go, but did you read anything into the way he was speaking to your sons?
I don't know how to explain it. I really don't.
Yes, honey, I do.
I don't know.
As you go home tonight, what are you thinking?
I'm going to pray for him that he deserves to get out. And he told all the truth that he could today. So we'll see.
You've been hopeful before and been crushed. What happens if it happens again?
I don't know. I don't know.
The route calculation is complete. Please proceed to the nearest
No idea what
Your
could happen.
destination is located on a street with restricted access.
Well,
So to kind of recap out here, the parole board hearing for white boy Rick Wershe has ended, lasted about 5 hours, with most of the testimony, I should say, was focused on how things happened, his criminal history, and how he got into the drug world with the FBI and becoming informants for FBI and the DPD. And then they spent little time really going through what he's done since he's been in MDOC, talked about rehabilitation, talked about the programs he's been in since he's got his GED, did some college courses. He said he was most proud of getting his GED, most proud of doing a program called Cage Your Rage, which is essentially a program that you can work through to kind of help with your anger issues. And finally, he said he was most proud of the work that he's doing to help others. He said he does some fundraisers for a church in his old neighborhood in Detroit, and also he does some fundraisers for outside groups. He said he does that through Facebook and through friends like that. Defender Kevin Dietz is over here. We're going to get an update from him as well. What I also found interesting is that at the very end of the hearing, Michael Egan, who was kind of leading the parole board, made some comments that he truly sees some positives from white boy Rick, and that he was almost talking about the fact that you could almost get the sense that he was leaning towards giving Wershe an opportunity at parole. Now, we should point out that if he is given the opportunity for parole is going to last 4 years, but he also has pending time to serve in Florida because of something that happened while he was serving time, some racketeering charges that he pled no contest to. So that would potentially keep him in prison even longer if that happens. In fact, Kevin Dietz is over here. We're going to meet up with him in just a moment just to get his thoughts on things as well. But it's been a very interesting day, to say the least, on what happened in the hearing. The hearing was packed, by the way. All seats were taken. There was even an overflow room because there were so many people in there. So Dietz, we're on Facebook Live here. One of the things that I've been telling people is that it was very interesting at the end of the hearing how Egan was almost leaning toward telling people that he might get parole, and even made comments about he sees a lot of positives. What did you think?
Yeah, it's impossible to kind of guess what the parole board's going to do, but everything that we've seen indicates that he has served more than enough time for the crimes he's committed. Not only the drug dealing as a teenager, but his involvement in a car theft ring. So something really crazy would have had to come out today to give the parole board a reason to keep him in. I think that they were very thorough, and it was a very difficult day of testimony. They got Wershe to admit that he did plant the drugs underneath the neighbor's porch, which he had never done before. Right. He had said he was innocent, that he didn't do that. Today he said he did do that. He also was more honest about his role in the car theft ring in Florida, before minimizing it, now being more truthful about it. So so I think, I think that the parole board wants to say, look, there were reasons he stayed in jail for 29 years. A lot of people thought he should have been out after 10 years. They made a case today that Rick Wershe wasn't the angel that he often portrays himself to be during interviews, and that there were some real reasons and some real concerns to perhaps keep him locked up. But where that goes with a vote going forward, I thought it was interesting that the chair of the board seemed to almost slip up a few times to say, when we let you out, when we parole you. But of course, he has just one vote.
Right.
There's 10 members. You have to get 6 votes.
You need a majority.
And you heard the lawyer say that he thinks he may be able to get the Florida time taken away because of the lengthy stay he had here in Michigan. They're going to work on that. They'll start working on that. But so as you heard, we're going to hear probably during the July meeting. There'll be a vote, and then it takes 30 days after a vote for him to get out, if they vote for him to get out.
I thought his attorney made an interesting analogy when he's talked about proportionality, that those that he helped put away, the leaders of these drug rings on the east side of Detroit, spent 14 or 15 years in, they're out, and he's still in. I think that the parole board may have taken that heavily into consideration.
I think this is what today was all about, weighing the crimes that he committed versus the help that he gave law enforcement to bring other drug dealers in. And it was interesting because the FBI agents who came from out of town to talk about all the cooperation that he gave were never allowed to speak. The attorney asked if they could have time, even though they didn't sign in as speakers, and the parole board said, no, we're not going to hear from you because we're going to follow protocol. However, keep in mind that both of those FBI agents wrote lengthy letters to all of the parole board members, so they know the story of the cooperation that Wershe gave. So they're going to weigh what his dealing 8 kilos of drugs did to the community back in 1987, and what his involvement in a car theft ring that, from what we heard today, netted his sister $6,000. What that weighs out to be versus putting a dozen dirty cops away, drug dealers away, and as one of the FBI agents said today, he helped prevent a murder as well.
Right. Okay, Defender Kevin Dietz, thank you, sir. All right, so Kevin is working on his stories for local editions at 4, 5 p.m. at 6. He's going to have all that for you as he walks away, gets in that satellite truck over there. He'll have all those updates coming up for you, and of course, some more updates right here on .com.